Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of Good Guys Sports. I'll be your host today, Blake Gerke, per usual, and we've got a great cast here today. We got our usual folks, Jackson Gerke, Mike Roby, Blake Lineberger, and we're joined by a very special guest, one of my old friends, Davis. Davis, happy to have you on the show today, man.
Yeah, pumped to be on. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. We were off last week. As we mentioned, we were traveling to San Francisco. Shout out to the Giants. Great time there this past weekend. But we missed a lot going on in the sports world, including some titles that were won, Jackson, some trophies that were raised, titles, celebrations, all that. So we got to start, I think, in the Stanley Cup. We've been keeping a close eye on this series the past couple weeks, and it kind of played out how we thought it would, right? I think we kind of figured that Florida was the stronger team all season, and it really proved to be. I think Edmonton gave it their all. I think probably last year might have been their opportunity to beat this Florida team, but honestly, we've been saying it for a while, Jack, that the Florida Panthers are just the best team in hockey, and they just know how to win in the playoffs, and that kind of proved in the last couple of games of the series, right, Jack?
They sure do, Blake. And they have been playing this underdog mentality for Paul Marie style hockey for a very long time, and so no signs of slowing down in weakness for this playoff run that they have been on year in and year out. And if you look at this um, Florida Panthers team of a group of caliber guys that they have shown for this locker room and this team, that they are not in a total rebuild. They are like in a win now mode, and how this group of guys has have built a championship culture from winning their first Stanley Cup in what was a game seven um last in last year's cup final against the same opponent
Yeah.
last year. And so this time around it went to a game six, and it also went to a
I mean, you could
and
argue
also
this
went to the same
year.
opponent.
Yeah, yeah. I think you could argue this year it wasn't. It was actually a lot less close because both of the games the Oilers won this year were both in overtime, right? So
Right.
like, I think it was more of a comprehensive victory. I don't know, Mike. Would you agree with that this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is South Florida going to be renamed South Canada?
I mean, it sure seems like it, doesn't it? I mean, it.
All the Canadians that play for the Panthers?
Nah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, like they just seem to be, the best run team in hockey right now. It just so
Yeah.
happens those best run teams aren't in Canada right now, it seems
Hey,
like. So
you got to have a shout out for Sam
Sam
Reinhart.
Bennett, or yeah,
He scored 4 goals in Game 6.
yeah, yeah. That was, and then I think the Conn Smythe winner, was it Sam Bennett?
Sam Bennett. Yeah, Sam
Yeah, yeah.
Bennett.
Yeah, who's I
Um,
think is going to be a free agent.
right. Yeah, yeah. So for my hope is that because I mean, to be honest, I hate the Panthers as a Hurricanes fan and just as a annoyed hockey fan. So I hope they some of those guys end up taking deals elsewhere, but they're a frustrating team. Davis, did you catch any of the Cup final? What would you make of the Panthers getting the victory there?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with the final games there. I think the NHL playoffs this year were amazing. I don't know if you guys caught the Avalanche Star series at all, but
Yeah, yeah.
that was very back and forth. There were several series leading up to it that were fantastic. So I think the final game was like 5-1 or something. I was a little disappointed
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that
It
result. I
was,
was
yeah.
hoping it'd be a little closer. But a lot of respect for Edmonton. I try to see them every time they're in town here in Chicago. McDavid's just a magician on ice. He's different. So
He's the best
I
player in
was
the
sad
league,
to
right?
see
You
him.
think?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. There are a couple guys like the last couple of seasons that are up there, but I think he still holds it down. He's really impressive.
For sure, yeah. I think that Eastern Conference Series final series with Toronto as well ended up going seven as well, right? So yeah, I think honestly the Stanley Cup Finals ended up being less competitive than a lot of the other series. For sure, that's a good point. Blake Lamberger, what'd you make of the Panthers, man? They're holding down the sports scene down there in Florida, but they're a pretty impressive team, right?
I don't feel good about my prediction. I said it's not about the Jimmies, the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. After Canada was up 2-1, I said The Panthers would take it in 6. They took it in 7. I'm not happy with myself. I was off by a game. And
No,
I'll
it
leave
was
at that.
6. It was 6.
Was it 6?
It was Florida and 6. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, okay, good. Well, now I'm okay. I'm back
Yeah,
now.
you're fine. You're
I
fine.
like to be right. I like to be right 3 games into the series. So okay, all is well again. Yeah. It's you guys are right. It's funny, man. I think it's not just Florida. Doesn't Tampa Bay have a few Canadians as well playing for them?
I mean, yeah, they were the last team to go back to back, right, Jack? Tampa was.
Yeah.
So it seems like the Florida teams just know how to get done in
Yeah.
playoff time.
Yeah, they do. You have to go back to 2020 when they won it in the bubble, which was held in Montreal at that time, and then the most recent one came in 2021. So yeah, they were the last team. History itself. History. Yeah, they were the last team that did it to win back to back, joining the Penguins back in 2016 and 17 for the second the team before that
Yeah.
on the list for the most recent Stanley Cup champions for those Sidney Crosby teams. So
yeah, they beat Nashville in one of those series, didn't they? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, good team.
Yeah,
good
and
team.
that's right. And if you go back to that Stanley Cup final, for those Predators fans who were just who were this close to winning the Cup final that year, only losing to Sidney Crosby and the Penguins that year, which definitely felt heartbreaking for those Nashville Predators fans, for which I'm sure Davis was at Vanderbilt at the time when he saw it live close in person watching it. But that's a story for another day.
Right,
and,
right.
And so
yeah, no, I think Jack, the big question. So we saw Tampa won 2 straight, and then they actually lost to Colorado on their 3rd straight Cup final appearance. So we'll have to see. So Florida will be going for the rare three-peat next year, won't they? And they actually lost the series before. So they actually have made 3 straight Cup finals, losing the first, winning 2 straight. So this could be their 4th straight Cup final if they win the East next year. I mean,
yeah.
I really hope they do. They don't, because I'll be really annoyed of watching Florida Panther playoff hockey in May and June if that's the case. But they're on the quest for greatness, right, Jack?
Yeah, Tampa Bay did it back in 2022.
They lost to Colorado.
Yeah, they did. And they were right there, but like you said, Blake, they failed and they couldn't get it done. Although repeats in sports is not very easy to do.
It's not easy,
if you really think about it. It's a lot of hard work to put in at it, and that's
Absolutely.
really how it's all said and done. And the Stanley Cup, as we all know, is the hardest trophy to win in sports for a reason, and that's that's part of why it's so hard to get back there, or even the quest for a repeat, which is so rare for other NHL teams. You have to go back to the Islanders back in the '80s,
long time ago,
to accomplish something like that. So
for sure,
that just and so that's just what history tells you for the last team, which was back in the '80s. Yet, if you had to go back in time for the last time that that happened in that instance. So
yeah, I mean they say that Stanley Cup playoffs is like one of the most. It's like a bit more random, and you get more upsets and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, teams like Florida Panthers that are so consistent in the playoffs was kind of maybe put a buck to that trend for sure. But yeah, I mean, listen, they've been a pretty well run franchise, and I wouldn't bet against them next year. That's for sure.
But let's not forget, Blake, back in that era that they did lose to Wayne Gretzky and those Oilers and those guys too. So let's just keep that in mind. But
so from the
also what I want to point out before you jump in, Blake, is that the guy who's played his longest 10-year career for the Florida Panthers in the NHL, that you have to point out that
who's that?
That Brad Marchand.
Oh, Marchand,
yeah, Marchand, the longest 10-year player in the NHL, won a cup with the Bruins in Game 7.
Yeah, he's a deadline pickup, wasn't he?
And did the same this past season with the Florida Panthers.
He's a bit of a goon, isn't he?
Oh yeah, and he
likes to scrap.
He's checked off checked it off his list. And
Yeah,
and the Barker family and Brad Marchand will be remembered and live it all, and winning 2 cups for 2 different Eastern Conference teams.
yeah,
Something he will check off from his um from his from his accomplishments for one of the, by far, that he will be remembered. I think one of the greatest players ever played in the National Hockey League, and he just did just that. And I think
Wow, that's a big
and
shout.
that's what I want to get a shout out to him for what he accomplished for this Stanley Cup playoff run that he's been on, especially for this Paul Maurice led red hot dominant for the Panthers team this season. So
No, yeah,
give him a
for
lot of
sure.
credit. He really did deserve a lot.
Absolutely,
And I think that Marchand just did just that.
He came up with a lot of clutch goals, like even a lot of the, some of those overtime. I think he definitely got at least one overtime winner in one of the conference finals or final series. And yeah, he just seemed like he was scoring important goals at the right time. That's kind of that, like you said, Jack. He's 37 years old, so he's been around for a while. It's kind of the guys you need deep in the postseason. Those veterans who know how to get done for sure. So yeah, it's a good call out for sure there.
And maybe one day, Blake, he'll find himself in the National Hockey League Hall of Fame one day up in Canada. So
maybe
who knows?
If they have a Hall of Fame for fighting, he definitely will be in there for sure. Yeah.
Yes, he's definitely there on top of the list.
I mean, yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, the Panthers are a pretty physical team as well, so he definitely fit in well there for sure. But yeah, compliments to the Panthers. Congratulations to them on a good series. I hope they don't win it again next year, but we have to give them their props. So.
Well, there's that, and let's also forget that they love to throw rats on the ice, unlike what they do with Nashville when they throw catfish on the ice, which Davis is very familiar with, having went to college there.
I think rats are better if they're plastic. Catfish are not very. They don't smell particularly.
Yeah,
good,
yeah. Well, it's happened before back in the old Miami Arena where they actually let in a real rat, but they learned their lesson from years ago. But now they decided
plastic,
to do the plastic one. Yeah, so
smart.
Similar to what the Red Wings did when they throw octopus on the ice, although that's real, but not with rats. They're all fake. So we're all good there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've covered the Stanley Cup Finals. I think we should pivot over to the NBA Finals, where we saw a pretty intense 7-game series, didn't we? I think we talked about this series kind of as it was starting, and I think everyone was pretty heavily, at least on our show, was pretty heavily on OKC, given obviously they were the best team record-wise in the regular season, at least in the Western Conference for sure. Indiana was kind of that surprise team that kept surprising people round after round, and you have to say that continued in this finals as well. Obviously, given the fact that it went to 7 games, and you hate to see the injury in Game 7 to Halliburton that kind of put a bit of a damper on that showpiece Game 7. But obviously OKC got the job done there at home in Game 7. Davis, I'll jump to you on this series. Honestly, I think OKC was the best team, but I couldn't help but feel Indiana was like the most impressive team that I watched this playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, no one really expected them to make the finals, especially put up a good fight against OKC. I mean, I was rooting for them. I know when those like mid-season reports came out from all the NBA player survey that they send out, I think Halliburton was rated the most overrated player in the league. So I was rooting for him. I was glad to see him go on a run. Yeah, I felt it was unjustified. I think he's been a great player. I think a lot of the time his contributions don't come across on the stat sheet, and maybe that's why some of the players voted him that way. I think he really backed himself up though in that series, and in Game 7, I think he had 3 threes in a row before he went down. He was hot, and who knows what he would have done without that injury. So tough way to go out in a Game 7, but still a great series. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Pacers were up by 1 point at halftime.
Yeah, that's true.
And with little over 2 minutes left, they cut the lead by 10 points. So, they've had a history of coming back in those playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they're no stranger to coming back from a deficit, are they? I mean, that New York series, right, in the conference finals, no exception there. So,
But I think the 23 turnovers they had in Game 7, that's what hurt the Pacers.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
relenting defense by the Thunder.
Yeah, I think that's probably what was OKC's ended up being their biggest strength, right? Was that
Hmm.
the bodies they could throw at you defensively
Yeah.
ended up, that it's a huge advantage.
You think that's the going to be the new way NBA is going to play basketball? Run, defend, and play as a team?
I think so, honestly. I think having that those numbers defensively is definitely something that I think maybe is we're going towards a new model. I tend to agree
Hmm.
with you on that. I think the days of getting like two or three offensive superstars and kind of filling in the gaps here and there might not be enough to get the job done. I think even a team like Indiana, like Halliburton's the most well-known player, but like realistically, he's kind of a guy that is helps out other teammates and makes other players better, right? He's not like a shoot first star kind of thing. So I definitely think this series is a good litmus test for kind of the future of the NBA in terms of team construction for sure.
Yeah. It's too early to say, but do you think the Thunder's got a chance to become the new dynasty?
I don't know, Jack. What do you think? Is it a little bit too early for dynasty talk, or are you all in?
Well, I think I'm all in,
I knew it. You love a
and
dynasty.
they could be the new. They could join the list of teams that are up there. They could be following the footsteps. Think about this. They could be following the footsteps of Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, and Kobe of the Lakers back in the early 2000s. They are up. They could be up in their way on their list. They are just getting started, and I'm pretty sure from what the work that they just did for making it a more exciting, competitive NBA Finals, Rokers or Cowboy kind of season. I just think that to me, I just think that they are just getting started, and they are going to be competing for more championships to come. That this will not be the last.
They are a young
They
team
are
for sure.
building
Yeah.
something special
Second
over there in
youngest team.
Yeah.
OKC,
There you go.
the second youngest team in what would be in what would be the newest smallest market teams. Now it's happened before in Milwaukee back in the 70s, but in OKC they are all in, and I'm here to tell you right now that OKC is is going to be by far, I think, one of the best teams in all of the Western Conference Finals. Because let's not forget, we'll talk about the NBA draft in a little bit, but to me, the OKC and the Thunder, they're just getting started, and
Yeah, dangerous
this
for sure.
OKC team is is up on their list, and they are and they got star players. They draft very well, and they know how to sign players in free agency, and that's just what they do. They they go hard. They push the right buttons. They're all in, and that's what they do as a team. So yes, the OKC will be will be a dynasty, the new dynasty in the NBA.
Only thing I will say, I do think the West is more competitive than the East. That may be the only possible
Yeah.
counterpoint to that. I still think they're the best team in the West, though.
They
But
won they won the West by 16 games.
right. I guess I just mean from like a talent
Yeah.
perspective with, I guess, Denver, Houston just trading for Durant, right? We
Hmm.
should mention that as well. I mean, obviously he's a bit old now, but there's some teams that are active in the West, I should say, right?
Yeah. Well, the Thunder beat up on the East this past season, 29-1.
Hmm.
It's just tailoring on what you were saying about the East not being as strong as the West.
No, it's impressive. I don't know, Davis, you agree? You think OKC class of the West for the next couple of years?
I mean, I think they still have draft capital left over, which is pretty scary. They had that huge trade with Paul George a few years ago, and they've just been riding that for years now. I think, last year people thought they were going to make a move to bring in another superstar because they weren't quite ready yet. They decided not to do that, and clearly they are ready. They're winning championships with the roster they have, and they have more draft capital up in the future too. So I don't see that changing. I do agree with you though on the West. There's teams like Minnesota too. Got to shout out my team.
Shout out.
There's a lot of talent
Yeah.
over there. I was hoping they would trade for Kevin Durant. Didn't work out, but I think they'll still be competitive over the next couple of years. There's a lot of competitors in the West.
I mean, are they going to make a move, you think, Minnesota, or are they going to stand pat with what they have?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest. They're really unpredictable. So I'm always on my toes with that team.
No, it's true. I guess the cat trade ended up being maybe more beneficial for New York because they made the conference finals, but I guess like ultimately Minnesota probably would do that trade again, like in retrospect, even still, right? So
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think they should have some more cap room coming into the next season, so they
for
might look
sure.
to bring someone in. I think they were very interested in Kevin Durant. I just think they didn't want to give up all the draft capital to make that trade happen, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. I mean, that would have been an interesting fit for sure. I don't know. Do we think this having Kevin Durant pushes Houston over the edge? I don't know what anybody else thinks about that. Obviously, they're a young team and they have pieces and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily think it makes them like the favorite in the West or for the finals. But I mean, it definitely improves their odds for sure, is what I would say personally. But Jack, what do you think? Durant to Houston, thumbs up.
Oh, I'm liking it. You.
He still has a lot to contribute, is what I would say.
I'm liking it. I love this move. You, Adam, with Fred VanVleet and this roster of what this
A lot of young
roster
pieces.
and this pieces for this roster and this team, they are going to be fun to watch and they're going to be very competitive. And I think that if you're a Rockets fan, you should be very excited for this trade that you just made because you got your star player Kevin Durant. You're playing in Clutch City, which is what they're known for down there, and I think the Rockets, having won championships back in the '90s when back when in the '90s, back with those teams, with Kenny the Jet Smith back in those days, who won championship with those teams. I think they can be on this level, and if Kevin Durant and Fred VanVleet and their other star players on the Rockets stay healthy, they could be a tough team to beat by one of the top teams out there in the West.
No, for sure. I think honestly, if like they had that roster in the East, they would be a pretty easy pick to make the finals next year. But given how competitive the West is, for sure, it's going to be up in the air for sure. So yeah, lots of competitive teams for sure. I guess go ahead.
Jack, what do you think of the Celtics trading Holiday to the Trailblazers? Are the
money,
Celtics
money
selling
dump, right?
off?
They and I do want to point out that they also traded Kyle Porzingis to the Hawks. So the Celtics are making some moves as we speak, Uncle Mike. So
Okay.
that leaves the question mark for Jaylen Brown's future, for his uncertainty as a Celtic, where you don't want to lose him because you gotta just talk sportsmanship and just try to re-sign him and do everything you can. Talking sportsmanship, that you keep in with Jaylen Brown and just keep the Celtics and do the right thing if you're the Celtics organization and the GM and for your organization and your vice president for this team. You got to just do something and just try to make sure that you get the right pieces in so that you trade. They do have a trade for the future round picks for next year's draft, and so that's actually to me a good thing for the Celtics. But what I'm hearing is that what I think what the Celtics should do is they should try and make sure that you don't lose Jaylen Brown, even though his contract is running out. But you got to make sure that you try to. So that would mean if you trade for Porzingis, you get one of the players from the Hawks to trade for the Celtics for this pick, and so same goes with the Trailblazers for one of those players. And so, to me, I think that would be a great sign for a good thing if you're a Celtics fan for making this kind of move. So yeah, they should have kept Kyle Porzingis, but he had a great career with the Celtics. But you know what? But you know what? His his time is up, and sometimes it's life. You got to move on and just play for a new team. And that's just what it is in the NBA, and you just got to deal with it. And that's just how it all goes in the off season. So
Indeed.
and so let me bring in Blake Lumberger to talk NBA basketball. So and Uncle Mike here. So there's this $1 million question for some uncertainty for Giannis Antetokounmpo's future. So here's what I think should happen. He is becoming a free agent yet again this offseason.
I don't think he's a free agent, but there's trade speculation.
I'm saying, right. All I'm saying is that what you're just mentioning, Blake, to me is those trade rumors, that there's rumors out there that
right
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they're just thinking about it for teams that are out there trying to go after Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say if you're the Hawks or the Celtics, you go after him and just try to, or why don't I throw out a wild card? Let's say the Golden State Warriors or the New York Knicks.
Yeah, there you go.
Teams like that can go after Giannis Antetokounmpo. But if you're the Hawks or the Celtics, then your team, then those teams can be competing for a championship. And even though Giannis is now let's remember, Giannis is a bit at his point where he's at his age, and he's kind of off his limits, that he has won a championship a couple of years ago, back in 2021 in Milwaukee, for what was a small market NBA team. But I'm not saying it's going to happen, since he's most likely to be staying with the Milwaukee Bucks. But let's say if he does get traded, I would say he goes to the Hawks or the Celtics for a contender in the East that can possibly build a culture down there and win championships. That's how I think it's all going to play out for Giannis Antetokounmpo for the offseason for the upcoming NBA free agency.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Blake, I don't know. What do you think about some of those rumors Jack was spouting off there?
It's so hard to focus right now because we have Jackson, somebody from the Duke Blue
I knew you were going to mention it.
Oh yeah,
Queen City.
Yeah, we haven't got to that.
His name is not Cooper Flag, Jackson. His name is not Cooper Flag.
Yeah, we haven't
because the
got
lottery's rigged, and David Stern's whole Dallas Mavericks, if they traded away Luka, they would get the first pick in the lotto. But that's just hearsay.
Yeah, we haven't got that part yet.
Now we can move on to the draft now, Jack. I was gonna mention it.
Right.
The banner day for Charlotte.
How do you feel about it, Mike? What do you think?
I love it.
Same.
Okay.
I'd rather him be in DC.
No, that makes him feel good. He's a 2 feet on the ground kind of player, but I'm okay with that. Less injuries, right? He's not going to fly out of the gym.
This is why I'm wearing a blue shirt in homage to Duke.
There you go.
Duke had 3 of the 10 picks.
That's wild. Who was the third?
The center.
Malawach, yeah.
Malawach.
Okay.
I think
Number 10. Went to the Suns.
Drafted by
the
Houston,
Suns.
Traded to the Suns, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the Durant transaction, I guess, right? So,
yeah.
lots of – it kind of makes you realize how they didn't win the championship, Duke, but that's another discussion.
That's
we already covered that in a few months ago, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, we should move on to the draft now. Obviously, Cooper Flag, consensus number 1 to Dallas, Harper to San Antonio, Edgecombe to Philly. Obviously, as Blake just mentioned there, Concanepo heading to the Queen City, Charlotte, and then Ace Bailey going to Utah, and then Uncle Mike's Washington team just on
Trey
the edge.
Johnson.
Always just on the edge of that. It never seems like they ever get the top picks, but Trey Johnson looks like a pretty exciting player for sure. But I guess I'll start with you, Mike. Maybe what were your reactions to that pick from Washington, and maybe just some of the draft picks you saw last night in general?
I thought it was a great pick for the Wizards. I'm surprised that Johnson was still available at the sixth pick. I mean, there was
I guess that was because Bailey went maybe earlier than people
because Bailey
thought,
went
maybe,
to
right?
Bailey went number five,
And
but
he basically said that he didn't want to go to Utah and he would have preferred to go to like somewhere like Washington or Brooklyn,
yeah,
right?
yeah, but the to me there are two great shooters. One was Canoopel, and the other one was Trey Johnson, who
Yeah.
led the SEC, a big conference this year,
Hmm.
had more teams in the dance, and Johnson led the SEC in scoring.
I mean, you always
So
need scoring, right?
always need scoring.
Shooting.
I think the biggest we'll probably get to some of it, but the biggest I don't know surprise was what the Nets did with their five picks.
Heavy on the guards, right?
I was like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, they had yeah.
I
So
guess they're
anyway,
just they went for the flyer method in terms of just taking as many
Yeah,
shots as possible, right?
I was a bit surprised with that, and I thought it was going to go as planned, but the Nets just had the Nets just had some other ideas in mind, and that's just the route that they went and just chose that player instead. So they just went what I would call the NBA European route is what they
yeah,
end up doing, and end up getting that player from BYU instead. So I'm a bit surprised on that.
yeah. I mean, getting a point guard that shooting a suspect.
It's never ideal, is it? For sure.
Yeah. But the other surprise, I guess, was Trailblazers with their number 16 pick, picking a center coming out of China.
Mm,
Not that,
Yeah, yeah. So I
I
think
but
think
they,
so.
the
So
point
yeah,
was they already had three centers. Now they have
I
four.
believe
Now
they're
they have four.
aren't
yeah,
they? Are they not moving him on somewhere else? Or they're
yeah.
moving?
I don't
So
know.
I think it was Memphis took a
Yang
center,
Henson.
Okay.
the
I
Chinese
think
center,
Yang
and then
Henson's
sent
going
him
to
to
be
Portland,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. Yang Henson to me is going to be one of the most dominant and most fun to watch players. Going to be a great player in
You
the
think he's
league
a
for the
steal?
next 10 years. I think he is.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Oh,
But Blake Lumberg, let me turn to you. Your Charlotte Hornets went locally in the state, and they just drafted guard Duke Con Knippel. Everybody is buzzing. The vibe in Queen
Nope.
City and
No pun
Charlotte.
intended.
Are
Thank you,
you
Blake.
ex- are you excited are you excited for Con Knippel to stay in the state and to travel just 2 hours from campus to the Queen City of Charlotte?
Jackson, absolutely, and I'm gonna tell you why. We don't know what it's like to win in professional sports. We did have a soccer team that was winning. Now we're struggling as well. So he might bump us up, a few wins. We're excited. Jackson, anything is a breath of fresh air here. We are excited. We love Coach K. We're hoping maybe we'll get a buy one, get one. Coach K comes out of retirement, coaches the Hornets,
You wish.
and kind of the Jim Harbaugh route of college football and basketball over here. That's what we're hoping for. Hey, and it's Steph Curry retirement. And now, I don't know if you or Mike have ever heard of a guy named Gerald Henderson, also a former Duke player, comes out and said there's no current NBA player or former NBA player that can beat him in a round of golf. Steph Curry from Charlotte, Dell Curry. So I think there's a lot that's about to stir in Charlotte. I think Steph comes back to play. Gerald Henderson in golf stays, plays with the team. We've already got his brother. Yeah, it's just go Duke, baby.
Wow.
LGD
yeah.
right now.
Wow, yeah.
LGD.
Lots going on there in Charlotte for sure. I do like the pick though. I think Knippel definitely you could see why he was rising up people's draft boards. Kind of a smart player. You can plug him in there. Knows what to do for sure. Davis, I'll go over to you on the draft. Any picks? I guess we haven't really mentioned Cooper Flag yet because he was the obvious number one. But any picks kind of stand out to you from last night?
I didn't watch the draft too much, but I did see Minnesota's pick, of course. They drafted a guy from France who's only been playing since 2021, I believe. So very raw prospect, but he was getting a lot of comps to Giannis. So
Oh wow,
I'm excited about it.
what could
Yeah,
what could go
apparently he was
wrong?
shooting draft boards, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
that's exciting.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Jack. I'll ask you about just because we should probably. I mean, we should mention Cooper Flag, right? He was the number
Yeah.
one pick. Dallas obviously somehow lucked their way into that pick. Do you think how much of an impact will he make in Dallas immediately? Do you think? I mean, obviously rookies take time, right? But it's an exciting time for Dallas given what they went through last year with trading away Luka, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the only way I see him winning to have a great season, especially heading into the playoffs, is that you get Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson to stay healthy. If you do that, then this team could be then this team has a chance and be competitive for an NBA title. So all has to go at plans first. You got to take one step at a time. You do have the NBA Summer League coming in July. You get a chance to watch them on TV or watch them in person at Summer League this coming summer to get up close to him. So Cooper Flag, I watched a piece on him coming from a small town of Newport, Maine, where his family lived most of his life in that part of New England, where he's lived and raised his family most of his life in what was known for lobsters and lobster rolls, and whether it's served it hot or cold. Watched a lot of that. Watched a lot of that, and so I think that, and so I think to me, and so I think to me, with Cooper Flag, if you stack him up and put him on this roster and this Mavericks lineup for Dallas, that if all those players stay healthy and go plan, then they could be a possible title contender.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget they do have Anthony Davis, who obviously has his injury
Right.
history, but he's healthy
Right.
for next year. Kyrie
Yep.
Irving is going to miss some of the season, but he is still a Maverick, and I think he just re-signed with them as well, didn't he?
Yep.
And they still have Klay Thompson as well. Let's not forget.
And
So
Derek Lively the
yeah,
second.
exactly. So it's a pretty strong team. I mean, if Clay, maybe not the same player that he was, so maybe the scoring might be a bit of an issue. But defensively, like Cooper Flag and Anthony Davis are really good defenders, right? So at the very least, they can be a strong team defensively in the Western Conference, kind of muck things up for a few teams. So yeah, it's definitely pretty bullish on them considering how devastating it was for them to trade away Luka and then somehow back their way into the number one pick. I'll let Blake Limburger handle the conspiracy theories there on that one, but yeah, I think other picks. You know, I think Edgecombe going to Sixers at 3 is interesting prospect at the guard position as well. And then I think we mentioned Ace Bailey, who's kind of this wild card pick going to Utah. I guess the intel there was that he didn't really want to go to Utah. He wanted to go to, I guess, Washington or Brooklyn, maybe because maybe he just didn't want to live in Utah or something. I don't know, but they took him anyways, and he didn't. He didn't look that happy about it. I saw some of the clips, which is kind of funny, honestly. The other guy they got picked by the Raptors didn't look very happy about it either. So maybe they don't want to go out into these cold weather cities, maybe. But he looks like a pretty exciting prospect. Maybe would have been gone higher if it wasn't for some of the off court concerns about his representation and agents and stuff like that. So interesting picks for sure. I think they'll be this class of rookies is pretty strong compared to maybe what we had last year. I think we're going to have some real impact guys this year for sure.
What do you
Yeah.
think about the Spurs? They had the number
Harper.
one pick last year,
Yeah, yeah.
and now they got Harper.
Yeah, I think the thing with them is to figure out kind of what pieces to surround Wembanyama with, right? And I guess they traded for De'Aaron Fox last year. Kind of plays a similar role that Harper would do, so maybe they can coexist there in that backcourt. That might be something they have to kind of work on throughout the year. I guess they had Chris Paul last year as well, who maybe he has to find a new team or something too. But I mean, I think they just went best available there. It seems like Harper was. I'm sure they would have loved to have Cooper Flag as well. I mean, imagine Cooper Flag and Wembanyama just like running down the block. Like he wouldn't be able to get anything past those two, to be honest. But yeah, so I think they just went best available there. I thought maybe Edgecombe or Knipple might have been interesting picks there, kind of thing. But ultimately, I think that top 4, top 5 was kind of the 5 best players that we see. Sorry, Mike, on the Washington being
That's all
number
right.
6 there, but Yeah, no, I think there's strong contenders there for sure. So I'm excited to watch these guys play for sure.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to the Mavericks and the Hornets play
Yeah, got some
because
Con versus Coop.
see what what Knipple does with his old
Yeah,
teammate.
I did listen to a interview, Jack, with Con Knipple, where he was talking about like he was playing pickup with Cooper when they got to Duke and stuff like that, and how like whenever Cooper, like whatever team Cooper played on, they just automatically won. He just like hustled and played like it was game seven every single game kind of thing. So I would expect him to bring that same energy to Dallas, but I think Con as well. I think like Blake was mentioning earlier with Charlotte, they kind of needed that culture change, and I think Con Knipple is definitely a culture guy, right, Jack?
yeah, and who knows if Michael Jordan is still owning and running the team down there in the Queen City?
He's
So,
not anymore. No, probably why they picked Con Knipple. Otherwise, they would have picked somebody else who was bad because he's not hasn't have a great track record with that.
well then,
Anyways, but yeah.
he's already sold the team a long time ago. So, a new ownership team just already took in place for this organization down there in Charlotte. But another player that we don't talk much about and mentioned is we know that Ace Bailey is going to we know that Ace Bailey is going to the Jazz. Teaming up with him will be Walter Clayton Jr., who is one most valuable player
That's right. Yeah.
From the University of Florida Gators, and he by far from Florida, and he by far, you look at him, he is accepted offers in a scholarship for football and for Tennessee and Florida, to name a few. And then previously, if you look at his playing career and his highlights, that he's played a few seasons with Rick Pitino at Iona, and and if you watch his highlights, he especially for this run that he's made in the in this past season's March Madness basketball tournament, that he made some shots that are not so easy to make. So he just makes it the hard way. He's very clutch, and watching the film, that he is one of the most clutch and most dominant 3-point shooter players that you'll ever see in this league. And I think teaming up with him with Ace Billy is a winner for me out there in Utah. And the Jazz and their
Team on the
ownership
rise.
and the GM is on the rise, and they're loving what they're seeing so far out there in Utah. And to me, I think the fans out there in Salt Lake City are going to be excited, and they're going to get some hype. And those fans out in Salt Lake City are going to love what they're seeing for this team for this team and the players that they drafted with so far. So
Plus they have the Mammoth now, right? To look forward to as well. So good time to be in Salt Lake.
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that, Davis?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the Mammoth, Davis?
What do you mean with the Mammoth?
They're the new NHL, so the Utah team. They played last
so
year
they
as
finally gave them a mascot. Okay.
yeah. What do you make of that as a team name?
That's an
What are your
interesting
what are your quick
choice.
thoughts on that? Yeah, you pro Mammoth?
I kind of like it, to be honest.
Something different,
I'm
right?
sure they'll have some great uniforms to go with it too. I was
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
say the Jazz are bringing back their old throwback uniforms this year. I think is
There you
their
go.
primaries, and look good, play good. So I'm interested to
Absolutely.
see how the Mammoth brand themselves. That'll be fun to see.
Yeah, I think they put out their unis, and as you would expect, they have a hairy woolly mammoth with big tusks
So
on the
they're
front of their
gonna come.
jerseys, right?
They're gonna come out on the court for the song "Wooly Bully."
Probably, yeah. They might. I mean, they might have to. I mean, I would imagine the mascot would be just a giant hairy mammoth as well. Which, luckily, it's
Yeah.
not too hot in Utah. Maybe when they're playing, so he'll be okay. But yeah, I think it's fun. It's fun. Fun branding. I think we mentioned before when they were having
Yeah.
their naming contest. I think that was one of the contenders for sure. So that's a
I,
fun one.
Mammoth
Especially
versus the Kraken.
There you go.
especially if you're out there in the Rockies,
Man versus Wild.
Man versus Wild. Which, if you ever watch this show, well, I'm sure pretty much most of us have heard of the show. But yeah, it's definitely a great it's definitely a great to learn something new every day for this topic for our Good Guys Sports in the program, since we are a talk show after all. And
There you
so
go.
I do want to point out that Walter Clayton Jr. He was projected to go to the Wizards, but like I said earlier, he is possibly traded to the Utah Jazz instead. So
Okay.
So that means Uncle Mike is going to
Sorry,
sadly
Mike.
miss out on the Wizards not getting
I
this
mean,
free
it's
free
his
free
fault for
point
being a
junior
Wizards
player.
fan. It's just constant. It's just constant disappointment, unfortunately.
Well, if the Wizards win 3 games, I'm happy.
I was hoping they would win the lottery. Like I could just envision in my head Cooper Flag in a Wizards jersey, but I guess it wasn't meant to be.
Hey, well, the District of Columbia has a new championship, though.
Who's that?
The Defenders,
Oh, DC Defenders. Who's that?
DC Defenders. They won the United Football League.
Oh, interesting. Are you gonna have Is there gonna be a parade for that one?
I think they're gonna give them a Metro Pass.
There you go. That's honestly well worth it, in my opinion.
Like my question is, will anybody come off that team? Will they get a look in the NFL? I mean, that's what I kind of love about these
DC Defenders. I'm trying to think of like who like the
leagues.
worst team in the NFL is might take a flyer on a DC Defender. Maybe I don't know who that
Oh,
would be this year, but
you're talking to the right guy, Blake.
well, I don't think the Panthers will be as bad as they were last year, Blake. I
Jackson,
think
thank you.
I think things are looking up. I don't think you're quite in DC Defender territory and for the Carolina Panthers yet, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Lots of time before the season starts in the NFL, anyways. Yeah,
Still got a few more minutes left, Blake, on our show.
sure.
But before we move on, is Uncle Mike should love this pick. You got a local. You have a for one of his favorite local teams and his roots that he grew up with. You got Thomas Sorber going to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Played college ball at Georgetown.
Georgetown, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That should be a very solid pick for him. And so we know about Walter Payton Jr. and that player that Davis was referring to um, for the draft from Timberwolves is a center from France. So that's
Seems
that's
like most of the international prospect these days are French, it seems like large majority.
yeah, yeah. And then we got a guard from Illinois, Dennis Rodriguez. He's going to Miami, and then the Wizards also
Will Riley.
got a Will Riley from Illinois. That's right. So
Yes,
you should,
small forward.
although you missed out on Walter Payton Jr. that you didn't get him, you should be, you should still be very happy for what the um, Wizards that got players that got drafted instead. So you gotta be very, very, very happy for what you got for the Wizards, even though Walter Payton Jr. Will not be playing for them, but still a very solid, great job for your guys, for your local team. And I do think the Wizards still made the right decision despite missing out on Walter Clayton Jr.
No, absolutely, yeah. Some good picks. You definitely can find value in those later rounds, later picks in the first round, rather.
And so before we move on, Blake,
Yep.
for round two for best available players, I'm looking at Max Reinhead from Stanford University and Rashad Fleming from St. Joseph's, Noah Pendon from France, Ayu Tero from Arkansas, got a player from Tennessee, from Australia national team, from Florida State, Creighton, Auburn, and Kentucky. Schools like Georgetown is on there in the list, and players from Australia, players that we've never heard before. The list goes on and on and on. But is there any player on the list that you that stands out for you heading into night two of the NBA draft?
Jackson, I don't think anybody knows anything about anybody taken in round two of the NBA draft. Unfortunately, I think once if you're a good player, you get taken in the first round. But I mean, I will say history has shown that some good value can be found in the second round of the NBA draft for sure. It's more of a rare exception, but if you really know what you're doing, you maybe can find a steal there. But I think for the most part, it's going to be slim pickings for round two. But you never know.
I think for me, the player that I want to keep my eye on is R.J. Davis from North Carolina to see
Oh, okay,
what
yeah.
kind of game he's got in the pro level.
He's the guy that's played like
I'm
7
really
years at
interested.
UNC,
I'm really,
right?
yeah, yes, yes, yeah,
That's a
yeah, exactly.
good point.
He at least knows what he's
That's a
doing on the
good
court,
point
right?
because what both of you all said, he's definitely battle tested. I mean,
Yeah.
the Hornets found out the hard way. If you get a guy that's 18 and not battle tested with our French player last year, who will probably let go at some point. Being battle tested is an important thing, Jack. That's a good player. I think somebody will luck out getting him, a battle tested point guard.
And also a player to keep an eye on is Will Richard from the defending national champion Florida Gators,
Okay.
followed by his other teammate Isaiah Martin, um, who who were teammates with Walter Clayton Jr. during his time at Florida during their run at the Final Four national championship. And I who will also compete and do well in the pro level, like Walter Clayton Jr. will. So for those kind of players, I think they'll do great in the pro level. And I think outside of that, I think players like maybe I can throw in another international player from the mix from France, and those European players from the NBA International School, G League, whatever you call it, for the European League out there. And I think for China and from Sengonia and international players, I think are the ones that can really can really be really can can really be more interesting for me, and just something for me to keep an eye on, because because usually those players tend to have more success than those college players, and I'm sure everything that plays out tonight, once round two resumes and gets underway tonight, will we'll know more and tell and just and tell us more,
Hey,
and and
Jack,
re- and recap to know which player will be off
let
the
me ask you
board.
a question, Jack.
That
I
will
think
be yeah, sorry, that will be hear his name called. That's off the board on that list.
Jackson, let me ask
Go
you a
ahead,
quick
Blake.
question. The
Yeah,
Panthers have two second round picks. Now,
from
I
what?
don't know if you've heard about this, Jackson, but Duke and Carolina don't have the best relationship. Like you said, RJ Davis, could the Hornets take RJ Davis and put arch rivals who have battled in the playoffs the last few years on the same team? Can you
Honestly,
see
it
it happen?
wouldn't be the worst idea because they might get some
it would be
UNC
crazy. You're
fans
not
that go
wrong
to
about
the.
that.
You might get UNC fans to go to the game that live in Charlotte, so could
It's
be
true.
could be a tactic for sure. Could be a tactic for sure. Yeah, no, listen, yeah, I think Jack makes some good points. There's definitely some value there, getting some of those veteran college guys nowadays with things like NIL and transfer portal. You get college players that have played quite a few seasons and have, battle tested, like we mentioned earlier, Final Four championship. So yeah, definitely some names to keep an eye on for sure, for sure.
Pay
Uh,
them enough money, they'll get along.
there you go. There you go.
That's right.
That's
And
generally
Mike said in DC that winning cures everything, right?
It does.
there you go. Charlotte and DC NBA teams don't know much about that, but that will be the
It's true.
goal. That will be the goal. And I mean, honestly, the past couple year or two we've been doing the show with Charlotte and DC basketball have been terrible. So I hope for both of you that those teams can turn it around here soon. So we'll see. We'll see.
And then do want to point out that Auburn and the SEC, like the usuals, like Kentucky and Tennessee and Auburn, are on there too. So
Yeah,
players to
for
watch as
sure.
well tonight. So
For sure. For sure.
definitely have to
Uh,
keep your eye on that.
Yep. Now I want to jump. I talked about it a little bit before the show started, but I do because you have Davis here. I know he likes his soccer. I do want to touch upon this FIFA Club World Cup going on here in the United States. In case any of our viewers and listeners aren't aware, bit of a precursor to next year's FIFA World Cup, also taking place in the U.S. Obviously, World Cup being really the biggest tournament in sports, isn't it? Happening here next summer. This summer, right now, we've got some of the biggest club teams, maybe some left out, like Liverpool that are champions of the Premier League not playing the tournament. A bit weird in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. But we've got some big teams all around the world, some big clubs, South America, Europe, here in the U.S. Playing matches. Obviously in DC, Mike had some games going on at Audi Field. Same thing with Blake Lamberger, some games in Charlotte, a couple of games in knockouts here this weekend as well, taking place in Charlotte. But
I
it's
was
been
at the I was at the let's see, the who played, let's see, Real Madrid game.
Oh, you did go to that.
Funny
Yeah.
story. Who's their midfielder, their great midfielder?
Uh, Midfielder.
Du-
Would it be
Uh
Modric?
Modric.
Modric. So we had Modric's tickets. So we set
Really?
Modric's like
Oh, is that
season
because of
ticket.
Christian's Croatian
That's
connection?
right, because they're both
Oh, wow.
Croatian. So he texted Christian and said he could use his tickets. So
Oh,
we
that's
had
awesome.
Modric's tickets. That was kind of a cool little side note. Sorry.
That's awesome. The Croatian connection. Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, Real Madrid will be, well, actually, they're actually playing tonight again. But they should be advancing to the knockout rounds. But Davis, I'll just pick your brain here. I mean, what have you made of this tournament so far? Do you think I know there's been a lot of criticism around maybe it's a not necessarily a needed tournament here and there. Maybe the weather and some of the field conditions in the US here can be improved. But what do you make of the tournament so far?
Yeah, I think they used to have this tournament. They've gone back and forth. They've canceled it a few years, tried to bring it back. This year, they've restructured it a little bit and they threw in a huge prize pool. So I think it's a little more competitive than it was the last time they had it in the US. But anytime there's these summer tournaments, the players tend to throw a fit. They don't like having these extended seasons. So
Right.
it seems like the buy-in hasn't been as high as you would hope. I'm hoping that it becomes more competitive after this first round. It does look like most of the teams are fielding pretty strong rosters, which has been encouraging.
Yeah, no, for
Um,
sure. I think the four Brazilian teams have advanced to the knockouts. Most of the European teams, Chelsea, Man City, PSG, Bayern, and Dortmund, for example, have advanced to the knockouts.
Davis, how do you like those 3 p.m. start times and
It's
the
hot.
with the heat wave?
I mean, like starting at 3 p.m. in Orlando is criminal, in my opinion.
It's like 98 yesterday here. I think maybe he heated X a little over 100. The Charlotte 3 p.m. start time, and I found out it's for TV, of course, right? Like
For the
they got to
time zones. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
no,
Well, it's a test
it is
run for the
crazy.
World Cup, and so they're gonna have to. The players just can't play. They're gonna have to just play 8 o'clock games and let the Europeans record the game somehow or broadcast them the next day.
I hear you on that, Blake. And the problem with that is you got too much hot weather. You got to deal with this humidity, like 90% night, like 90% degrees or something.
I
Right.
It's
mean,
like hotter
yeah.
than like your average microwave or a oven, for example, for that kind of temperature and that hot.
I
That's
mean,
just what
they're
that's
playing
what
games in both Miami and Orlando in this tournament, which I think is kind of crazy. But I think part of
yeah.
the reason why as well is because they know they get a huge fan base for these South American teams in South Florida, right? So like Argentinian teams, Brazilian teams have huge fan bases in places like Miami and Orlando for sure. But yeah, I mean, like even like Davis, the Bayern Flamengo is playing on Sunday in Miami at 4 p.m., which I mean, it's gonna be roasting at 4 p.m. I guess so. It's crazy, but before we go, I want to get your pick for this tournament, though. I don't think we'll be able to have a show before the end of the tournament. So, Davis, what are your Club World Cup champion predictions?
I'm always back in Bayern if I'm not watching Premier League, so I'll have to go for them.
Yeah, they've got a Brazilian team, a Flamengo, in the round of 16, and they're also in the same. They would play the winner of PSG Inter Miami as well. We should mention that's a kind of a fun game, and that's in Atlanta actually. Interestingly, on 29th, you got Messi facing off against his former club team. Kind of some bad blood there. Things didn't really end well with Messi in Paris. Obviously, now he's down in Miami, so that'll be a bit of a grudge match there. One to keep an eye on for sure. Some of the other interesting fixtures you got both the Brazilian teams, Botafogo, Palmeiras playing. Chelsea's still in there playing Benfica. Man City's playing the winner or the runner-up in the games tonight. So yeah, some interesting games going on across the U.S. A couple games in Atlanta, Charlotte, stuff like that. So I think personally, I do watch a lot of Premier League and Champions League and stuff like that. I haven't really watched many like full games, partly because it's like you're playing like 3 p.m. on a Monday, like I'm at work, so I can't just like sit down and watch a Club World Cup game or whatever. Um, but and also the TV is a bit interesting. I think it's on DAZN, I think, all the games. So it's like a streaming service. I think maybe you can get a free trial, stuff like that. So it's more of I think definitely what I would say about this tournament is that it's a good test run to get out some of the kinks for the World Cup next year in terms of like travel, stadium conditions, things like that. I do think they need to improve the field pitch conditions in terms of like obviously we don't want them to be using turf. The ball's going to like bounce fine everywhere. I think there's a clip of I think Bellingham from Real Madrid, English midfielder, criticized some of the fields, which I can understand. Seeing a lot of those conditions here on the U.S. stadium is not always the best for soccer, right? So I'd say there's pros and cons of this tournament. I've definitely enjoyed watching some of the games. I think probably once we get into the quarters, semis, finals, it will be more interesting for sure. So yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle in terms of my Club World Cup thoughts so far, I'd say.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm with you there, Blake. Hopefully, it does help the World Cup run a little bit more smoothly once we're in 2026. But I'm definitely excited to get out to some of those games. Hopefully, I can
For
see some
sure.
of you guys there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We got games in Atlanta, right, Jack, here in the Southeast. A couple of big cities for the World Cup next year. So
Yep, we sure do.
summer of soccer this year they're calling it with this tournament, but next year's going to be even more crazy, right, Jack?
That's right. That's right. And and you look at it on a geographical standpoint, that Atlanta is actually the the closest um venue and site for where Blake Weinberger stands. Since there are no games out in Charlotte, then Atlanta would be your then Atlanta would be your option to go to
And it's a
for one
dome,
of the World Cup
Jackson.
sites. Yes, yes,
And it's
in
a
a
dome with those 3 o'clock
retractable.
games.
It's out. No, it's not just a dome, Blake. It's not a dome. It's a retractable
So
roof
much more.
stadium.
Well, you can cut that AC on at three. This
That's
is what's
true.
going to have to happen. Either they change the times or every game's going to have to be played in a dome.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, like
So just play them in domes. Don't change the time. We'll come to 3 o'clock games. Just play them in domes.
No, I agree.
Just come to Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz
Atlanta, baby.
Stadium
Come to the
Playground,
Benz.
where down in hot Atlanta, where you can where the Art Blanket and the Mercedes-Benz Stadium can close the roof, and that way you get more fans to watch the games there. So I say, come to the ATL and watch the World Cup there.
All right,
Absolutely.
guys.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. All right. We are officially out of time here on Good Guy Sports for this week. I want to give a
Blake,
big
love the mustache, by the way.
Oh, appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm sure all the fans at home do as well. But yeah, we're out of time here. Just want to thank our guests today. Obviously, Jack, Mike, and Blake, our usual, and of course, special guest Davis coming on. Definitely appreciated having you on, Davis. Hopefully, have to have you back soon.
Yeah, it
This
was
is
a
great.
pleasure. Would love to
Absolutely.
jump back on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll be taking a bit of a summer break here on Good Guy Sports. Obviously, got some holidays coming up, but we'll definitely be circling back here soon as we progress to the summer. So keep an eye out for sure. Gentlemen, thank you and have a great weekend.
And Blake,
Thanks.
before we go, I do want to shout out that the San Francisco Giants and the Autism Awareness Night. It was
Yeah,
a very special weekend,
absolutely. Huge shout out to
and the
them.
people treat us well, and they had some great interviews and storytelling. And for meeting Will Clark, it was a great opportunity, and you and I got a chance to be a part of that. It was a very special moment that I will remember for a lifetime, and something I'll never forget. And it was definitely something that I will most certainly remember in the history books. That I will once remember for the years to come. It was definitely a fun trip with the family to be a part of it, Blake.
Absolutely, absolutely. Huge shout out to the Giants. Shout out to the Autism Awareness Night. Everyone go give that a look as well. They're doing some great stuff out there for sure, for sure. All right, that's it for today. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.